Over the last 18 months, I've spent over $100,000 upgrading my brain. And so in this video, I'm going to break down exactly what I did, what I spent my money on, the results I got, the lessons I learned, and what I would recommend for you if you're someone who's looking to increase their energy, improve their cognition, and upgrade yourself. So there's two categories of things I invested in. Number one is technologies, and number two is education and skills. And when I calculated it, it ends up being over $110,000 I'd spent. But I'm going to break down each category individually, as well as what I invested in each category. And then I'll break down the takeaways from each so that you don't have to spend $100,000 to learn the lessons that I learned. So before I talk about the specific things I did, I want to talk about why I decided to do this in the first place. About 18 months ago, I was incredibly burnt out cognitively. I was working 7 days a week, 10 to 12 hours a day. We were growing, we were hiring, we were doing all of these different things. And I fatigued myself so much that I couldn't sit down to watch a movie on Netflix without losing track of what was going on. And so after some time off, I heard this analogy, and it's an analogy that stuck with me, and it's that of the $1 million racehorse. And so if you haven't heard it, basically if you've ever seen a $1 million racehorse, you know it's a $1 million racehorse. It has a team of people that protect it. It gets daily massages, it gets a nutrition plan, it gets PMF, it gets security. There's all these things going into this racehorse because that horse has the earning potential of $1 million. And the analogy is that if you're a business owner or an entrepreneur, it is very likely, at a minimum, over your career, you will earn $1 million, potentially much, much more. And so if you look at the racehorse, and you look at yourself and there's a discrepancy in terms of the level of care and investment that's going on there, then you have a very big problem. Because as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, as a founder or a CEO, you are the most important part of your business. You know, if you stopped marketing for a month, your business would survive. If you stopped making sales for a month, your business would survive. But if you disappeared for a month, there'd probably be no business when you came back. And so that makes you the most valuable part of your business. And when I heard this, at the time, we were spending over $100,000 a month on marketing. We were paying $20,000 plus in commissions and wages each month. We were doing all these things. I was investing so much into the business, but I was investing $0 into myself. And so I had this realization that if I wanted to continue this long term, I had to start investing more into myself. And so that's when I started looking into things like biohacking and performance upgrades and coaches and mentors and all these different things, which I'll be breaking down in this video, as well as the results, the takeaways, and what I'm going to start focusing more on moving forward. So the first category of things I invested into is what I'll call technologies. And these are different devices or therapies that I purchased to upgrade my brain, upgrade my performance. If you guys want to learn more about these things, I would suggest a YouTube channel. His name's Mathew Farrahi. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. He has all of these technologies in a lot more detail. That's where I found most of them. And so shout out to him. He's got a great channel and he shares a lot of tips on these specific technologies. If you want to learn more, I'd suggest checking him out. So the first device I invested into is this V-Light or Vi-Light. And basically the way this works is it sits on your head like this, and it has this thing which goes up your nose and it shines light into your brain. It's a photobiomodulation device, which means it uses near infrared light to activate the mitochondria in your prefrontal cortex and other areas of your brain. And that increases focus, it improves memory. It's been shown to reduce things like dementia and Alzheimer's. But for me, I found it gave me more clarity. It reduced mental fog. It was a great way to wake up. I use it nearly every morning. But this has a price tag of somewhere around $2,000. So it's probably not the best place to start. Yes, there's a benefit in it. I definitely noticed it. But if you're just starting out, I probably wouldn't suggest starting with this one. The next device is a Muse S headband. And basically what this is, it's an EEG reader. And so what that means is it scans your brainwaves and you wear it when you meditate. And what it does is, the goal of meditating is to clear your mind and calm your mind and not think of anything. But what happens is when people start to meditate, they have these thoughts. And that's defeating the purpose of meditation. Meditation is you're trying to not think of anything, basically. And the problem with that is if you're not used to meditation, you can be sitting there and then you have a thought and you don't really catch it. And 5 minutes later, you've still got this thought. Or maybe you have this thought and you get up and walk around the house and then you realize that you were meant to be meditating. And so what this device does is it connects to your phone and there's an app. And when you're meditating, it plays this sound, and it can be rain, for example. And when your mind is clear, the rain stops. And when you start to have thoughts, the rain picks up. And so instantly you can hear when your mind starts to wander and you can pull it back on track. And it's kind of like going to the gym. Like the way you get stronger is by doing reps. So when it comes to meditating, if you can pull your mind back more times or more frequently, you'll get a better result. And so with a regular meditation session, you might only pull your mind back 2 or 3 times because it wanders and you kind of forget what you were doing. But with this, you might pull your mind back 20 or 30 or 40 times in one session. And so you're strengthening that muscle. And so this was quite useful in terms of meditating, which helps with focus. It helps with falling asleep quicker. So this Muse S was actually quite useful. Another device was the Fisher-Wallace simulator, which is a neurostimulation device. It basically goes on the side of your head like this, and it shoots electrical currents into your brain. This helps with relaxation and reducing anxiety and helps fall asleep. Another kind of device is this. This is a TDCS, or transcranial direct current stimulation device. This particular one actually ended up burning me on my forehead, so I stopped using it. But the idea here is that this is going to be a very simplified explanation of how this works. Basically, for your brain to fire, for your neurons to fire, there's an electrical signal that goes through it. And let's say that to make a neuron fire, it needs to go from 0 to 10 units of electricity, right? Super oversimplified, but bear with me. So for your neuron to fire, it needs to go from 0 to 10. And it's this process. What this does is it shoots a mild electrical signal into your brain so that it brings up your baseline from 0 to, let's say, 5. So now for that neuron to fire, it doesn't need to go from 0 to 10, it only needs to go from 0 to 5. So it can fire quicker, and that can enhance learning and memory and focus. I did find this useful, but it burnt me, so I didn't keep using it, but that is one device to check out. The next is the Oura Ring. So that's this ring that goes on your finger, and it looks like this. It tracks your sleep. This is very useful for making sure that you're getting enough sleep, enough deep sleep and REM sleep every night. I really like the Oura Ring, and it's probably the one thing I would suggest most people use out of all the things I mentioned, because knowing how well you sleep and then seeing how to improve your sleep is something that's going to have a massive impact on your energy and focus each day. Another device that I liked a lot is the Joovv red light panel, and this shines red light and near infrared light onto you. You stand in front of it. I've got a bigger unit on a panel on a wall in another room, but I would use this for 5 to 10 minutes each day, and it increases energy. It improves mitochondrial function in all the cells of your body. I also noticed that it improved my skin a little bit as an added benefit. Some other things I did was I got a infrared sauna, I got a ice bath, I did IV vitamin infusions. Basically they, with an IV drip, put vitamins into your blood, which is a better way of absorbing vitamins. I did a bunch of different vitamin cocktails as well as a NAD infusion. I visited naturopaths and doctors and got blood tests and did all these different things. But from all of the technology side of things, there's 2 main takeaways, 2 things I learned. Number 1, and most important, is that yes, all these things do help a little bit, but if I have a bad sleep and I eat bad foods, I'm going to feel bad. It doesn't matter how much of these things I use. If I don't have a good sleep and if I don't eat well, it doesn't make a difference. On the other hand, if I had an incredible sleep, I had a good healthy diet, I'm going to be 10 times more efficient and effective, and I'm going to feel better, even with all these devices. So the first thing to understand is that if you're interested in these things, that's fine, you can use them. But if you don't have a good sleeping schedule, if you're not eating a healthy diet, it's going to be wasted. So start there. You'll get 95% of your gains from sleeping better and eating better. And it sounds basic, but that's the truth. The second thing I discovered from using these technologies is the opportunity cost of doing so. And so what I mean by that is every day you only have so much time available. And when I started using these devices, I would spend an hour or an hour and a half each day just using the devices. And yes, they made me feel better, but the amount of work I could have got done in that hour didn't outweigh the marginal improvement in my cognition or efficiency throughout the day. And so what I realized was that you can spend a lot of time and money on these things, but ultimately it can be a distraction on what you're actually trying to do. So now what I do is I'll use this while I'm reading or studying. When I do the red light, I'll use it for 5 or 10 minutes while I'm planning my day or looking over my notes. I'm doing other things. If you just focus on these things, yes, you might feel a bit better, but if your goal is improved output, you'd probably get greater output just by doing work. And so understanding that these things do have a cost associated with them, not just the investment to actually purchase the thing, but to use it every day is going to take time, and that time could be spent doing something that may be more beneficial for you. The second category of investments I made was in education or learning or skills. So I did a bunch of courses and masterminds and programs. I did Sam Evans' mastermind, and that allowed me to hit our first $100,000 month. I did Alex Chefnan's mastermind, which taught me a lot about systems and hiring and management. I had coaches in mental math and mindset and memory and vocabulary. I did training programs in hiring and sales and marketing. I read over 500 books. But through all of that, the main thing that I've learned about education and programs and courses and all these other things is that the main thing you get is perspective. And so what I mean by that is when I started out, I thought that if someone was ahead of me, if someone was doing better than me, it was because A, they were working harder, or B, they knew a strategy that I didn't have. They had some little tactic that I wasn't aware of. And what I learned from talking to people who are very advanced is that it's never about the strategy. The people who win, they have more skill. And so there's two things to think about, strategy and skill. And what I find is most people when they're starting out, they're focused on the strategy. They're trying to figure out what strategy is going to work best. But the people who are ahead, they develop the skill. And so as the biggest piece of advice I would give someone if they're starting out is don't get too caught up on the strategy. Figure out how can I develop skill. No one achieved lifelong success based on one strategy. They achieved it because they developed skill in different areas. And so for me, the biggest takeaway from investing in different courses and mentors was that the people who are ahead of me, they know a lot more than me. They have more skill and they deserve it. And so that gave me perspective, and it also gave me belief that I can do better. I think if you don't surround yourself by people who are ahead of you, then you think that you're on the same level as them. And that's not true. People who are ahead of you, they are more skilled than you. They know things you don't. They have abilities that you don't have. And so rather than you just working hard with what you've got, you should focus on developing your skills so when you do work, you get a greater outcome. And that really is a massive key. And what's interesting about skill is that skill can be learnt, but it can't be taught. And so what that means is I can tell you a strategy, but you need to put in the work to develop the skill. And what most people do, like I said, they try to find the best strategies and they don't want to put in work until they found the strategy that they think is going to work the best. But that doesn't really exist. Without skill, no strategy works. And with skill, you can make any strategy work. And so at the start, understanding that if you want to move forward, you have to change yourself, right? If you buy a program and it teaches you a strategy, which is an external thing, if your skill doesn't change, you're not going to be able to use that strategy effectively. Instead, you want to focus on developing your skill, which is an internal thing, so that you can take any strategy and make it work. So for me, the biggest takeaway I got from investing in education was that I got the perspective that the people ahead of me deserve it because they have more skill. And that gave me the belief and hope that if I develop my own skills, then I can achieve greater success. And so that's something that I'm focusing on moving forward is how can I develop the skills to get ahead? It's kind of like this saying by Gary Vee. He says, you can't read about push-ups, you have to actually do push-ups. And so a lot of people, they're looking for the strategies, but you can't read about a strategy. You can't be taught a strategy. You have to learn it yourself by doing the work. So I think if you're looking to invest in programs or mentors, it's a great idea to do if you understand what you're trying to get out of it. You shouldn't try to get out a strategy. I mean, you can get a strategy, but what you need to understand is by doing that, by investing in something, you need to take it, put in the work and develop the skill because that's how you progress. Too many people, they look for a strategy or they buy a program, they learn a strategy, but they haven't developed the skill because they haven't put in the work to actually develop the skill so that the strategy works in the first place. So I think the biggest benefit of investing in yourself and programs is that you gain perspective, which will give you belief that you can actually become better. And when you do that, you'll see much greater returns from your time and effort. So to summarize, my takeaways after spending $100,000 plus upgrading my brain is number one, sleep, exercise, and diet are most important. And number two, to develop your skill and progress, be around people who are ahead of you, but understand that to get ahead, it's not about a strategy. It's about developing a skill. And you'll notice that the people who are ahead have developed the skills. I've never seen someone who's achieved success long-term. There are people who achieve short-term success and then lose it. That's another story. I've never seen someone who's achieved success long-term who isn't incredibly skilled in what they actually do. They're not using strategies, they've developed skills. So if you want to progress, focus on yourself. Yes, invest in yourself, but invest in developing your skills because with the skill, you can make any strategy effective. Hopefully you've enjoyed this. If you have, be sure to leave a comment, subscribe, give us a like. If you have questions about any of the technologies that I mentioned, let me know below. If you'd like more videos or more detailed explanations on any of the things I mentioned, again, let me know, and I'll see you in the next one.